Hey guys, it's Ornlu, and now that Battle of Africa is past, I thought it would be a good idea to revisit the tier lists I made as part of my team game meta overview video. Now that we have some good tournament data on our hands, uh, this will be still be subjective. I'm not just going to go directly off the stats sheet. In fact, I'm not even sure if I'm going to use this or not because a lot of it had to do with specific maps being in the pool that you would not find on ladder, not on your Arabias or Lombardias or anything like that. So it's still going to be with those sorts of maps in mind, your open land maps. But it can be applied to different degrees on more closed maps. So, and I guess we can just take this opportunity to just reflect on which were the standout civs in Battle of Africa. And again, I have the stats here, but I'm also going to be going just off of what I remember, which is a fair amount. I cast a lot of games. So for constant tournament picks, starting with flank civs, by the way, because that was the first one that popped up when I was looking to go back through the videos. Because right now I'm starting with the same tier lists I had back then. And I will keep this in mind for the current patch as well, by the way. I think we have to put Ethiopians and Vietnamese up there right away, just because we saw all 5 of these civs picked on flank all the time, no matter what the map, though especially Arabia in Battle of Africa. And although you might argue that Britons and Mayans are still the best, Chinese, Ethiopians, Vietnamese, I think proved themselves to be perfectly competitive with everybody else up there. Also jumping up there from 2 tiers down is Saracens. I probably would have put them at the bottom of the constant tournament pick tier, but it was shown many times that they can just be so broken in team games. The extra building damage for archers is just such a strong team bonus, especially in closed maps, as in maps where you're very close together, and walling is normally a big thing that you would want to do, like, say, Beach Fight or on not Socotra. Like, those were just huge maps for Saracens. Even just Arabia, just being able to punch through and punish an opponent who's fallen behind is just such a big deal with Saracens. It's still kind of awkward, though, because it doesn't help you in the fight, right? It only helps if you're ahead. Like, it's a win more civ. So it's kind of tricky, but I mean, I think a lot has to be said about the civ that it was banned by pretty much everybody at the end and had a super high win rate as well. Yeah, 64% win rate with 33 games played. That's pretty bonkers. And all of that was on flank. Yeah, all but one game of that was on flank. Bulgarians had the highest win rate, but they only had 13 games, so you can't really, I think, take a whole lot out of that. I don't even know if you guys can see this. Just trust me on this one. Anyway, other civs that we saw, perhaps once these civs were all picked or banned or something, what civs do we see replace them on flank? I think this is pretty much, pretty good. Maybe put Vikings kind of at the top alongside Aztecs, Mongols, definitely on the more aggressive maps. It's still going to be way up there. But the rest of these civs we saw on flank all the time as well. All with varying degrees of success. Vikings had a lot of success. Aztecs, Japanese, you can see all did pretty well. Malay had a pretty good win rate. So you can see that all of these civs, they're all good. Also, probably going to want to put Incas up there, just because they were picked all the time. I'm still not 100% convinced about Incas, just because if you go for like the super heavy aggression, it's kind of what everyone expects, right? So then you're just kind of predictable and easier to counter. But on the other hand, if you just go for a completely standard meta play, you're just kind of an okay flank civ. So I'd definitely put that at the end, but still probably up there in terms of tournament viable. For everybody else, probably put Huns and Turks and Koreans, as they were picked on flank, fairly frequently. Malians as well, on more aggressive maps like Colosseum, were picked a lot. Tatars and maps where you have lots of elevation. In Battle of Africa, that was on Canyon Lake, but you could say you could easily transition, or you can translate that. There we go. To a map like say Hillfort, which is in the current map pool. Everybody else, I mean, we saw all these on flank occasionally, but yeah. Sad flank civs. Probably have to put Goths up here as well. Maybe let's put them here. Especially now that they are better. They are better even than they were in Battle of Africa, now that they have free loom. And if you want to go super aggressive, Goths are your pick. I honestly should probably put Lithuanians up here as well, just for that reason alone. In maps that are very aggressive, it can be good to have a civ that can go for like a 3-minute drush, like Goths or Lithuanians. Why am I in Art of War? What? I definitely hit the wrong button. So just checking real quick. Maps where you can go for a lot of aggression can be certain mega random generations. Arabia, obviously, Wolf Hill, you can certainly go aggressive with, and you're gonna want to pick Lithuanians anyway on Wolf Hill, and Aztecs, obviously. So you can see that also, like, it's not just for this map pool, but you can kind of apply the similar concepts that we saw on the maps that were exclusive to Battle of Africa. You can apply that to other maps as well. Other than that, like, we saw Berbers played on flank a bit, Spanish were played on flank way more than they were in pocket. I'm definitely going to knock them down in terms of pocket. As well as Burmese, but that was on specifically Grand Barra. And it's weird because the Fast Castle unique unit civs, Spanish, Berbers, Burmese in this case, and then maybe some other ones that you can throw in there, like maybe Mongols or whatever. Those tend to be the sorts of flank civs you want on maps that are very closed and that you can just wall super easily, because going for Fast Castle into your unique unit, Mayans of course, but they're already really good on Arabia for other reasons. But yeah, going for Fast Castle unique unit is not very economically greedy, right? You spend all those resources on the castle, you want to get those units out and churning as fast as possible, which means you are going to be delayed in adding your economy, but simultaneously can go much more aggressive. It's why we saw Spanish picked as flank as opposed to pocket most of the time, I think. Spanish. Where are the Spanish? Here they are. Oh, they had a 39% win rate. Yikes. So let's see. On flank, they were picked 13 times and pocket 10 times. Not the greatest sample size out there, but you can see that especially in the more closed maps. You pick Spanish on flank, and I guess you can do that on maps like Arena or even BF or something like that. Or Fortress, I guess, if that's ever in the map pool. Beyond that, I'm thinking this list is looking pretty good. We saw the Hun flank occasionally, but yeah, I mean, I think this is all right. This is an all right list, and I think especially the most notable ones I think are the fact that all of these civs are super good, but especially Saracens making the big jump, and then that these 5 civs are just super consistent in terms of being the top 5 civs, with Saracens kind of being the wild card in there. Then Vikings, Aztecs, Mongols, Malay, Italians. Like, all these guys are definitely quite viable. And if you're in a situation where you might want to do something specific, want to go for a specific synergy on a certain map or whatever, or these civs aren't available or for whatever reason, you can go for these just fine. Oh yeah, Turks, just real quick, Turks and Koreans kind of a similar deal. Pick them on more closed maps and then they become a lot better. Anyway, pocket civs. Everybody loves pocket. So, Persians and Khmer did disproportionately well, I would say, considering that they were pre-nerf. That said, they're still really, really good. First thing, I might even put Indians above Franks, just because Indian pocket was so hard to deal with, especially, like, you'd say especially in a 3v3, but if you think about it, an Indian pocket would be even better in a 4v4, because then you have the option to go Imp Camel plus Paladin, which is way better than double Paladin. So Indians probably still deserve to be back at number 1, but Frank's obviously up there as well. Very common. What was Indians' win rate, actually? Indians had a 54% win rate, picked exclusively in the pocket. I think that's actually not quite telling enough, just because they were picked so often for pocket on Arabia, especially, that you can't really... Like, the good teams pick them and the bad teams pick them, but anecdotally, I think that Indian pocket is insane. Franks, I would still put Khmer and Persians up there. Definitely gonna knock Spanish down a bit, while simultaneously moving Lithuanians up. Huns, yeah, Huns you can still stay up there. Cumans, maybe knock them down a little bit as well. Yeah, but I think we can maybe work with this for our S tier, or constant tournament pick tier. Just because these all have very, very strong economies into strong late game cavalry options. Paladins for Franks, Persians, Lithuanians, Huns, camels for Indians, and battle elephants for Khmer. Even post-nerf, Khmer and Persians are still going to be absolutely among the very, very, very best pocket civs. And Lithuanians definitely a standout pick. What was their win rate? Lithuanians had a 44% win rate. Picked mostly in the pocket. But again, anecdotally, I think the stats don't tell the whole story. And especially on Canyon Lake, they were picked all the time just because you can get a very good early fishing eco. This could, for example, be applied to Scandinavia, where you saw pocket players just go for a very early dock with Lithuanians because you can afford the extra, I guess, not gathering food time to, go gather wood and build a dock and whatnot. You can apply that same concept easily to Scandinavia as well, just as an example, and other maps too. So yeah, Lithuanians definitely a civ that shines, and also paladins with plus whatever attack are insane, obviously. Spanish didn't perform as well as they used to. It just seems like they've been power crept a little bit. Or rather, I would say that the meta doesn't as consistently go to trade. That was especially true in Battle of Africa, but I think that's also just true of the games I'm watching in general in terms of just watching rated games. I think Berbers did pretty well. I mean, I honestly probably would jump them up here. I mean, this exact ordering doesn't matter, but I'd say Berbers are definitely more towards the top. They had a lot of really good games where the Cavalier Flood completely just crushed people in early to mid-Imperial Age. And again, in a meta that is more aggressively oriented, Berbers are going to shine. I didn't see Mayan pocket, I think, at all, and I think Mayans honestly do worse in a scenario where you can't sling. Mayan sling was such a big reason of why they were even picked in pocket at all in previous tournaments and stuff. And yeah, you can see that without they're not good enough on their own when they're not being slung to warrant being picked in pocket. Pickpocketed. No. But if you're not seeing slinging in tournaments, you're definitely not seeing it in ranked games. So I think I'm quite comfortable dropping them down a little bit. Bulgarians had some good games where they shined in pocket. Slavs did as well. Boyars now on the current patch, obviously much more viable in late game as a good option. Oh yeah, Teutons. How could I forget Teutons? Yeah, they're insane right now. You're going way up here. Maybe even just above Persians. How could I forget about Teutons? Yeah, didn't see that in Battle of Africa because they played it on the old patch, but now with the extra melee armor for your paladins, they're insanely good. And you just have a really good economy behind it. And also good siege. And good monks, potentially. And bombard towers and halves. Yeah, Teutons are a great pocket. Would probably still put them right here, but it's really close between all these civs. Malians, I think I can bump up a tier as well. Just because, again, when you're looking at a meta that is more aggressively favored, the fact that you don't have Paladin isn't as big of a deal, and you have a good early eco, and you have Farimba and Heavy Camel, and Malians can certainly do work up until post-imp. Actually, for that reason, I'd also drop Mongols down a little bit. Just because throughout Battle of Africa, we weren't able to see players really ever get to Mangudai. In most cases, I feel like Mangudai weren't seen all that often for how... I mean, Mongols are picked all the time because they're Mongols, right? They're awesome. But Mostly it was just to execute early aggression, especially on maps like Colosseum. Less so the Mangudai late game plus siege thing. Burmese we mostly saw on flank, but that was more of Grand Bara specifically. Or maybe on Beach Fight as well, they went for a siege monk push a couple times, but yeah, I think they're still pretty good, but not like amazing. Oh yeah, Magyar Pocket we saw all the time, very successful on aggressive maps as well. Like again, Colosseum, it was like Magyars and Slavs on Colosseum all day, every day. And Magyars had a very good win rate in that matchup specifically, notably. So I think that's an interesting little statistic. But if you're in a more aggressive map, Magyar is going to be a great aggressive pocket civ. Everybody else here, I mean, we didn't really see them all the time. Goths, I think now especially, you got to bump them up. I don't know. Let's put them here. Sure, why not? There. They now have free loom, so they are now better economically, but they're still the one-trick pony they are. I think that when you did see Goths thrive, it was as a counter pick, and it was on Grand Bara where they were like impervious to raiding. That said, though, Goth spam can certainly do work. Again, we're talking about a more aggressive meta than what we saw in the past. Like, the Battle of Africa looked nothing like Nations Cup, the last one, in terms of just how teams were playing. Teams are getting a lot better at being aggressive. And of course, that all does trickle down to the latter with us plebs as well. Just not as good. But beyond that, I mean, it doesn't really matter. The thing with pockets is that in a 3v3, you only have one pocket versus two flanks. So you see fewer pocket civs. In a 4v4, obviously, it's the same. But all I can talk about in terms of 4v4 experience are the ranked games that I was casting, or I have been casting recently. And that's a lot fewer than Battle of Africa games that I've cast in the last, month or so. So I can't really, I think, speak a whole lot to the rest of these other than, yep, still probably should be around the same spot. And I think with Pocket especially, you want the better Pocket civs. In my opinion, in a 4v4 and 3v3, but especially in a 3v3, it's more important to have a good Pocket civ than a good flank civ. So I think you're really looking to have civs like this when you're playing ranked, or if you're in a tournament at all, just because the Pocket player is the early to mid-Imperial Age, like early game to mid-Imperial Age, like the Pocket's the carry, quote-unquote, right? They have the most space, they go for the fast, powerful units and cavalry, they have the easiest boom potential, and it's not until like really, really late game that the flanks make their doom pushes with bombard towers and stuff. So yeah, I mean, definitely, it's really important to have a good pocket civ, and I think especially with like the top 4 or 5 here, pick them in ranked, and you can pick them on like any map too, which is, I think, a big thing. The music always just like, whoa, music. Like, it really doesn't matter what map. I mean, maybe Nomad or Mega Random, you want something different, but for like all the normal maps, like, just pick the very best pocket civs. It really doesn't matter. You don't want to really alter your pocket civ that much. It's not like Incas become a great pocket civ on certain maps. They aren't. Even if you're playing like, I don't know, like the most aggressive map possible, like Atacama or Serengeti or something, you'd still just rather have a good scout civ. So I think that's really all I have to say about that. Not like the world's craziest movement, I guess, in the ladders. I guess I'll show the flank one off one more time. But I still think it was interesting to think about and talk about just the sorts of meta trends that we've been seeing, regardless of balance changes, as well as obviously balance changes. And yeah, definitely I think these are going to be the civs you're going to want to be looking for when you're playing your good old ranked team games. Now that team games seem to be working a little bit better, I think, as far as I can tell. Well, I think, as of me recording this, if you get into the team games, they're pretty good, but there's a lot of problems with people, like, even just getting into the team game in the first place. So if you actually get into a team game, or if this is in some magical future land where that's not an issue anymore, you're good. You're good. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you all in the next video.